If you can make a hit in a ball game, you can make a hit with me. But the man who can hit in a ball game can be my affinity. I'm simply baseball wild, oh how I yell. Slam out a home run hit, I'll yell like woo. If you can make a hit in a ball game, you can make a hit with me.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday, with our platforms also on Instagram and Twitter. Like, comment, share, and subscribe when possible. Check out our great website at macandjacksports.com. That's called Mac Sports Insiders for information on all our insiders, articles, team public relations updates, and our great sponsors for links to their products and services. Today we have a special guest, as we do on every Wednesday, Dr. Paul Semendinger. He's a founder of the great Yankees blog, Start Spreading the News. I'm Mac with your co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association. And we're bringing you national sports with special focus on the Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. How you doing today, Jack? And how you doing today, Doc?
Really good.
Okay,
all
great.
is well.
Yeah, this is our special debate show, folks. So if you haven't seen it yet, me and my co-host Jack Hirsch debate some of the hottest topics and some of the greatest.
We argue so much, Mac. One of my friends thought every day's a debate show. It's full time because we normally argue about things.
Yes, sir. Well, we get into it hot and heavy on Saturday, and we're lucky enough to have one of the better Yankee experts in the field with us, and also knows a lot about Major League Baseball in general. So, guys, I'm going to give a little bit of updates before we get into our Yankees poll and then a Yankees trivia question. And I'm going to stick on the sports updates with something to do with baseball and with the Yankees specifically. The former Yankees minor league affiliate sues the Yankees in Major League Baseball. The Staten Island Yankees Foundation are suing them for false promises, guys. And we were talking before the show, and both of you have said that you went to watch a minor league ball game in Staten Island, New York, correct? If I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah, Staten Island.
And you both enjoyed your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful ballpark, but what was the exact attendance? We'd have to see the totals. Did the people in Staten Island really support the Staten Island Yankees to the point where they could really have a big argument with what the Yankees did?
And you, Doctor, have you ever been there?
You know, I don't think I was, as we were thinking about it. I've only heard great things about the stadium, but something in my memories telling me there was a different stadium that I attended a game at, and then they built this nicer one which overlooked the city, and I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Okay, well, I wanted to touch on this real fast, guys. The Major League Baseball, and this has been a story for a while now. They're kind of tightening up, and they're keeping some, affiliates, getting rid of others. Out here in Connecticut, where I live, they had a team called the New Britain Red Sox, and I should say it was an affiliate of the Red Sox. Their name was the New Britain Rock Cats. They had a big vote on what the name of the team should be and everything, and that place was always packed. The minor leagues a lot of times do fill their stadiums. They're family friendly. They have picnics there. They have family days and stuff like that. And it really helps the surrounding communities. And a lot of these communities, businesses, people that buy, season tickets like they do with our new affiliate stadium down here, the Hartford Yard Goats, a gorgeous stadium. And it's always packed. And it makes Hartford really buzz when they have games there. And to me, it's a shame. And I've read a lot of things about this during the year, how Major League Baseball is doing this, and there's a lot of bad feelings between a lot of the affiliates and the Major League Baseball, their teams that they represent, and Major League Baseball as a whole. What do you guys think about, them cutting ties with some of these affiliates and, leaving the people that attend these stadiums and these games and hurting the surrounding communities? Well, how do you feel about that in general with minor league baseball, kids actually being able to go watch games?
Okay, I'm just going to say for a small town, let's say like Hudson Valley, that's where the Staten Island Yankees are moving to Hudson Valley. Is that small town going to appreciate having a ball club more than the people in Staten Island would? I don't know. I'm not passing judgment on that. But there are a lot of small towns across the country with a minor league affiliate. I mean, it just means so much. I know the minor league affiliates mean a lot in the state of Florida. Last season, I went to a couple of exhibition games there. I went to a Met-Washington National game. Then I went to a Yankee-Miami Marlin game also. And they seat about 7,000 people. And in Florida, for the exhibition season, they're going to sell out. But there are different levels, as Doc could tell you, the minor leagues. You have the players who are just about major league ready, one step away. And then you get the lower levels. Like a couple of years ago, I went to see the Long Island Ducks play. And those guys kind of, they have a shot at getting to the big leagues, some of the players. But it's kind of a distant shot. As sometimes you have former big league players down and out, and it's their last shot. They'll play in the independent league, hoping they do something special. But these minor league parks, minor league baseball is nothing like it. I mean, it's really special.
And I agree. I think minor league baseball is special. It's fun. It revitalizes communities. It brings energy. And to me, it just seems like a terrible business sense to restrict and contract your minor leagues and have fewer teams. That's fewer places where people can watch live baseball. That's fewer affiliates to the Major League Club. As you were mentioning, they used to be called the New Britain Red Sox, and they were called the Pawtucket Red Sox. And then I don't know how many years ago, but it was a number of years ago that Major League Baseball said the minor league teams can't hold the Major League team's name in their official name, which also made no sense. I think baseball should be supporting the minor leagues. When the minor leagues were in their heyday, teams had boatloads of franchises all across the country, which obviously had to help the big league clubs as far as marketability, as far as bringing the game to people, as far as giving people employment in towns all across America, and in bringing up talent. You look at all these different teams. The more you have people who are playing, the more opportunities they have to play, the more you can start to see which guys can help your big league club. If I were a major league team, I think I would say we're only allowed 4 teams. I'd still want to have 8. What type of a competitive advantage would that be? I know they're not allowed to, but I just don't understand restricting it. I'd have more.
But Doc, we have no fans in the stands. Okay, so I'm actually sympathetic towards the owners. I don't know whether this makes business sense at all, but can you sign one less free agent and use that money to set up minor league facilities? I don't know what the answer is, but I do know the owners genuinely are losing a lot of money by not having fans in the stands, not only ticket sales, concessions, and so on.
But this was going on, Jack, before COVID hit. I mean, they were, and the thing that was wrong about it is it's even become political, where it's being argued in government right now, especially in the states that this is happening, where they're picking and choosing which teams that they want to support. And the New Britain Rockcats were very, very popular. Their stadium was filled all the time, but I think they would rather be in Hartford, the hub of where they want to have this team. So they left New Britain high and dry. New Britain ended up getting another team. And of course, it's not the level of what they had with the Rockcats. And before that, as the doctor said, the New Britain Red Sox. So they just left them high and dry. And it was not like they, there's contracts that are signed, Jack. I mean, there's contracts between Major League Baseball and different places to have their team there. And And in some cases, they actually are breaking contracts. And I understand with COVID right now that maybe, we saw what happened. They laid off all the minor leaguers. I mean, they just, besides the ones they brought up with the team, they just cut. They were the first to be cut. And I understand that. But this was happening before COVID. And it's forcing teams right now to start an independent league, which I think Staten Island is going to get involved with. And it's called the Draft League Independent League, where they're thinking these players that are ready to be drafted, they're going to bring the minors in there. So far, there's 6 teams. I don't have all 6 teams in front of me, but they are going to affiliate this. I think the New Jersey Trenton Thunder is also one of the ones that are joining this. So, in my opinion, Jack, what you're doing again is you're taking baseball away from the kids. It's hard enough to get a ticket to bring them to a Major League Baseball game. The games are all on a night right now. And to me, I shouldn't say all of them, but a majority of them are. To me, this is a great way to get new fans again, or to bring fans up through baseball, where to me, this is where the future of the Major League Baseball is going to be, not just with us guys that are over the hill and we like baseball because of what it was a long time ago. So, I mean, I think this is a bad thing they're doing, especially in light of the kids.
Mac, but you have to consider that the minor leagues are breeding ground for the major league teams to get their players. And it's the only sport that's really like that. In the NFL, they're picking their players directly out of college. In the NBA, they're picking their guys for the most part directly out of college. Major League Baseball, of course, they'll draft some college players, but for the most part, they've identified who they think are prospects before they're a college age, and they're trying to convince them to sign a minor league deal instead of going to college. Let's say there were no minor leagues altogether. The next wave of major league players, for the most part, are going to be coming directly out of college, the way it happens in the NFL and NBA. And maybe Major League Baseball is noticing that, and they're saying the expenditure is just too great to keep these minor league affiliates going. It's sad because minor league baseball is great, but that's what they might be thinking as far as the economics go.
I mean, maybe, but I think, a lot of affiliates are selling out and they are making money. It's not like every one of them is losing money. In fact, again, where I'm from, both teams are doing very well because a lot of these people cannot go, to Boston or to New York because Connecticut doesn't have a professional team. But a lot of these people can't go, and a lot of kids can't go. And again, they make it family friendly. It's a day out. They like I said, they have picnic tables. They have certain games for the kids. And I mean, to me, even if they're spending a little money, well, maybe you don't sign, somebody to 10 years for $200 million a contract. Maybe you take $100 million of that, and maybe they all get together, all the owners, and maybe make a pot for the minor league and keep baseball relevant. Is what I'm saying.
The minor leagues are definitely more fun for little kids to get involved in the game. The players are accessible. I mean, if you go to Yankee Stadium, you can't get an autograph except if you're sitting in the $4 billion seats already. The players are so distant from you. But you go to a minor league game, you call out a player, they're happy to sign for you. It grows the sport. I'm just reading from the New York Post here. Staten Island is saying that they will not have a team. They can't keep up the model.
Okay.
The club said the expense required to pay the players and the staff for such a team makes it impossible for the Staten Island Yankees to pursue this business model. So it looks as though Staten Island might be closing. Trenton definitely joined that draft league.
Right.
But just looking at just with the Yankees, with Trenton, they're very mad with the Yankees. There was a bad press, 2 weeks ago with them, and now there's the bad press with Staten Island. If I'm running an organization, Major League Baseball, all this negative press can't be good. that these cities and these affiliates that used to be associated with us are angry with us and suing us. That's not a great business model.
You mentioned the fun about a minor league game. Take the Brooklyn Cyclones, for example. I mean, they're located in Coney Island. It's a short walk to the world's famous Nathan's in Coney Island. You have the boardwalk. You have the whole amusement park there. They have fun things where the kids can go on the field. You can walk, you bring your dog to the game day, walk your dog around the field, the playground area, and the prices are reasonable as well. I mean, of course, we'd all rather, the three of us would rather be in Yankee Stadium for what's at stake, seeing the highest level of baseball. But you're still going to see a quality game, and it's a fun day out, especially with kids. Kids have more fun at minor league baseball than Major League Baseball.
That's the truth, and again, I just think it's a shame. And as I said, there's something else that's going on behind the scenes that I don't know the whole story about. And as I said, the government's even starting to get involved in it. So, guys, I posted another poll question, and my assistant producer belongs to 3 big Yankee fan sports groups. And I put up a Yankee poll, and the situation I gave the Yankees is similar to one of the ones we're going to debate, me and Jack and the Doc will be in on. I said the situation is there's 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th in the World Series, man on second, who are you sending to the plate? And the options I gave them was Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, or Babe Ruth. Now, I think I already told Jack the results of this, and it really surprised me. And the answer, believe it or not, was Derek Jeter, who doubled Mickey Mantle in votes, tripled Babe Ruth, and quadrupled both Gehrig and DiMaggio. Now, guys, the only reason why I can figure Jeter won is because of the age group right now and the people that are in there. Because, I mean, statistically, even though Derek Jeter was a great Yankee and a Hall of Famer guaranteed and all that good stuff, and he did have some clutch hits. I mean, batting average wise, you talk DiMaggio, Ruth and Gehrig were both, almost 40% higher in the batting average. They drove in almost 1,000 more runs. So what do you guys think of that Derek Jeter being the answer for that? Start with you, Jack. What do you think about that?
They're fans. What could I tell you? I remember one season, and I love Derek Jeter. I mean, I wish we had him back at shortstop for the Yankees, starting his career all over. I mean, he would be my number 1 free agent if that were possible. But I remember one season where Derek Jeter, after he made an out to end the game, for the 8th time that season with a man in scoring position, all we would hear after that how clutch he was. He's so clutch. But he was a clutch player, but nothing, out of this world. I mean, his postseason batting average mirrored his career average, which was .310. I think he hit about .308 for the postseason. He was a clutch player, but not one that was out of this world. I mean, I could think of other guys who I'd rather have up in a big situation than Derek Jeter, even though, great player. Listen, he got big hits when you needed it, but to put him ahead of the other guys, I can remember specifics like Doc can and you can. The 7th game against the Red Sox in the 2003 playoffs, 8th inning, 1 out, they're down 5-2, no one's at base. He hits a double to get it started. Now that's clutch. If he doesn't get on base, now there are 2 outs in the 8th inning, no one on base, and they're 3 runs down. Little things like that when they got eliminated, I think it was in the 2005 playoffs against the Angels in the 5th and deciding game. They're down 5-2. He hits a homer to make it 5-3. Then in the 9th inning, he leads off with a base hit. Now, that's clutch. He was very clutch. But to put him ahead of Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, and come on. I mean, the fans just don't get the sense of history. Either they're overestimating how great Derek Jeter was or underestimating how great, guys like Gehrig, DiMaggio, and Babe Ruth were.
What do you think, Doc? What do you think about that poll?
I think it's what I agree with Jack. I think it's recency bias. We run into this on the other end when it comes to talking with people about TV shows, and everybody thinks that the cartoons that they grew up with were the best ones, right? Like, oh, when I was growing up, we had the Howdy Doody show. That thing was the best. And then, whatever the next generation is, or Bugs Bunny was better than SpongeBob and things like that. I think we tend to romanticize those things that were special to us that we experienced personally. And none of us have experienced Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig or Joe DiMaggio or even most people at this point, even Mickey Mantle in his prime, right? If you saw Mantle, it was probably towards the end of his career. So I just think that, and certain players also get the narrative and the highlight films. So Jeter appears in slews of highlight films because he came up big many, many times. And that then helps drive the narrative. But Jack's right. Most players regress to the mean. If you're a 310 hitter in your regular season and you have enough at bats in the postseason, you're probably going to hit about 310. You are who you are. And the sense that certain people can rise to the occasion consistently, I think, is a fallacy. I think it happens sometimes, and you have great stories when it does. But listen, if you were in a game and the game is on the line and the greatest hitter of all time, Babe Ruth, is available, you go to Babe Ruth.
Right.
There's not even a question. If I'm a pitcher and I have the choice of facing Jeter, who's great, and I wouldn't want to face, but I think I have a better chance of getting Jeter out with a 310 lifetime batting average and without the power of Babe Ruth than looking at somebody who had 714 home runs and batted about 344 for his career. I mean, you don't want to face Babe Ruth in that spot, period.
And it also goes to show, a base hit may not drive in that run. I mean, you want somebody that can not only get that base hit, but either drive it to the alleyway or maybe knock it out of the park. And, to me, for Jeter to get that many votes, again, as I said, I think it's just because of the generation and people have watched Jeter play. And we have a lot more highlights of Jeter playing than, say, Lou Gehrig, who, batting 340 and driving in almost 2,000 runs. Far more superior than Derek Jeter, at least, and defensively just as good, too. So, this is one of my favorite parts of the show that I love to do with Jack all the time. So we got a trivia question for you guys. And it's hard to stump you two because both of you know Yankee history.
I like this. If I don't know the answer, I just keep my mouth shut and I'll see if Doc gets it right and I'll nod my head. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay. So Jack, again, is throwing Doc under the bus to see if he gets it first.
I think I've gotten 4 out of the last 5 right.
You have. After going like 0 for 9, Jack is on the rebound, and he's really I think it's the questions too, Jack. I felt bad for you at 0 and 9, so I had to. Yeah. So
yeah. It took something off your fastball.
Yes, I did. I did a changeup, and you just kill it every time. So we all remember Shane Spencer, 26-year-old rookie who kind of came up late. He started hitting home runs, including a bunch of grand slams, played in 3 World Series. He kind of fell off a little bit. And he went to play for another team. Now, I'll take 2. You have 2 teams to choose from because he played for 2 teams in the same year. So I'll give you either one. Can either one of you name the 2 teams or one of the 2 teams that Shane Spencer went to?
You name one and not,
I can name one.
Okay.
I'm almost certain he went to the Mets.
Jack?
I don't know why, and I don't know this for sure, but for some reason, sometimes something pops in your head, and I don't know that this is the answer. Something about the Cleveland Indians pop into my head.
Well,
that sounds good, too.
Jack, you believe it or not, Doc got it wrong this time. And Jack got it right. So
I got a little like I didn't know it for sure.
No.
Something about the Indians. I don't know.
He played for the Mets.
That was
yes, he did. Yes, he did. But he played for them after Cleveland and after his stint with Texas.
I misunderstood the question. I thought you just said name any team that he played after. I didn't realize he played for Texas. So, all right. Good.
So he did play for the Mets. I think it was the following year in 2000.
I got lucky on that one. Yeah.
Well, look, Jack comes through, and again he put.
I swung and missed.
I took a check swing, and the ball went off the bat and went for base hit on a check swing.
Right. So I was
Yeah.
more worried about Doc on this one than Jack. I mean, Doc is with his blog and everything, has everything going on with the Yankees. But, Shane Spencer, that was interesting. I mean, people were comparing him to Mickey Mantle when he first came up almost. It was, calm down a little bit, guys. He went on later in his career. He had a little problem with drinking and ended up having a DWI, and then tried to be a manager at a minor league team, as we were talking about. Again, got in trouble for that. So
a good question for Doc for another time. Maybe he might have to look this up, because I don't know the answer myself, and I don't know how I'd look it up. Who are the great Yankee phenoms who just looked, tore the league on fire when they came up and then faded out? I could think of one with the Mets, believe it or not. Ron Swoboda came up as a phenom, hit a lot of home runs. People are going crazy about him. Who are the great Yankee phenoms? Because Spencer was one. I mean, you could say Gary Sanchez, actually, in a way. You can
Hopefully
maybe
not,
make a
but
point.
yes.
Right, but who actually came up? There must have been guys in the 20s and 30s who we don't even think about, who went on a tear in the beginning of their career, and then
there was a pitcher. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he came up and he was an older guy too, and he lit the league on fire. He was like 9-1 or 10-1. Something ridiculous in his first thing of pitches, and then he kind of fell off. I can't remember his name, Doc. It was like a 10-game wonder or something. But
Aaron Small?
I think that was.
Oh, that's a good one, Doc. Yeah, very good.
I was thinking the question was going to be, when you were talking about Shane Spencer and he hitting all those home runs, I thought you were going to go to Kevin Moss.
No,
he did that.
Was another, Kevin Moss. Yeah, good one. Yeah.
Dan Pasqua, a couple of years before that, he came up. He was supposed to be really super.
What about Steve Alboni? Did he go on a tear in the beginning? It was just.
I don't think he ever went on a tear. I think that was part of the problem. But we always kept thinking Alboni was going to be. But
did he have a good career at Kansas City?
He did. He hit 30 home runs a few times for the Royals, I believe.
Why did the Yankees part ways with him? I mean,
John Mattingly.
Good point, but didn't they have the DH then? Is Steve Alboni a good guy to compare, even though it's different positions? He was a first baseman, but to compare to Gary Sanchez, we maybe don't want to part with the guy because of potential. Could Sanchez be like a Steve Alboni type in performance?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I just think the Yankees, they're going to give Gary one last shot, because the upside is so high that. And he's only 28, that they don't want to get rid of him and get rid of him a year too early, which is always a gamble, because if they keep him and they start him this year and he's terrible, it'll be a year too late. But I agree with the Yankees on that. Give Gary one more shot.
We disagree on that, Doc. But
he's a James McCann guy, Mac, and I kind of like James McCann. The more I think of it, Mac was on the money with that one. Whether they sign him or not remains to be seen.
Well, he'll sure go one of the first free agents. I think he'll be in that first, that first 10 free agents taken. I think McCann will be taken by some team. So, Jack,
I'm sorry. Here's your Steve Balboni homer numbers. In 84, he hit 28. In 85, he hit 36. In 86, he hit 29. In 87, he hit 24. And in 88, he hit 23. The problem was he hit about 240, and then 243, 229, 207, and 235.
But he improved as a first baseman defensively.
He was a starting first baseman for a long time. Yeah, he did.
Right. No, okay, but at that time, those numbers, even though those are good numbers for now, they were better at the time.
In the mid-'80s, yes.
Value, right, than now. Yeah, it's the equivalent of hitting, closer to 33, 34. Yeah, the equivalent for today. Yeah.
Okay, Jack. So we're going to get on where a debate, and this was along the lines of the poll I did. As far as what the first debate topic is, you got the open floor on this, and the debate question is, now in the local area, we're talking Boston, New York, and Philly. Again, Jack, there's 2 outs, man on second, bottom of the 9th. In the World Series, who you sending up?
Okay, all these other guys who you two might mention later on, keep in mind, if it's an old timer, a great old time hitter, they didn't play the shift on the guys at that time the way they've done it modern times. So you need a guy who can spray the ball all over the field. That's what you need, a guy on second base. You need a natural guy who can handle the bat, not a power hitter, you know. I know you could say a guy who could be a potential 45, 50 homer man, a guy who gets a lot of hits in the gaps, so on, because they didn't play shifts, the old time guys. If that's who you're thinking. Now, the guy I'm picking isn't thought of as a local guy, but he played 5 years for the Philadelphia Phillies. But you think of him as a Cincinnati Red, and it's Pete Rose. And he did substantial things with the Phillies. They went to 2 World Series in his 5 years. They won one of them. He broke the consecutive game streak for the National League, you know, hits for 44 in a row, and he made a run at Joe DiMaggio's 56. He did that with the Phillies, I believe, if I'm not mistaken on that. And that's the guy I want with a bat in my hand, Charlie Hustle, because Charlie Hustle will hit the ball anywhere in the field. He'll make the adjustment. Try playing a shift on him. He'll hit the ball the other way. No one's more gritty than Charlie Hustle. I know the stats might say another guy, okay? I don't want to name the name because in case one of you two guys pick the other player, so I could get back to him later. But Pete Rose, I mean, the all-time hit king. I have the most faith, the bat in his hand. Actually, he was up in a situation like that, believe it or not, in the 1972 World Series when the Reds played the Oakland Athletics. They were down 1 run, the Reds, and there was a man on base, 2 outs in the last inning. I believe the man was on first, if I'm not mistaken. Pete Rose comes to the plate. They got him out, but he hits a drive off Rolly Fingers, you know, to the warning track in left field. And if you watch it tape, Fingers' head turned like instinctively, like he thought the ball was out of there, gone. So even when you get Pete Rose out, he scares the heck out of you. And that's the one guy I want, Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose with a bat on his hand, because you're not going to strike him out on a check swing or fool him. He's gonna have his swings. He's gonna have his hacks, and there's a good chance something very nice would happen.
Wow, Jack. I mean, Pete Rose, yes, one of the greatest hitters in history of baseball, but nowhere close to the legends you could have picked from. I expected maybe Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski, be a knowledgeable, lifelong Yankee fan. I logically thought it'd be one of those legends with batting averages at least 30 points higher and almost 1,000 more RBIs. Heck, Willie Mays, Duke Snyder had higher batting averages and more RBIs. Mike Schmidt, a man on his own team, had more RBIs.
Matt, this isn't career numbers you're talking about.
So Jack, I let you talk.
But you go off topic, Matt.
Listen, Jack, Pete Rose, I might have wanted him up with no outs in their 9th inning because maybe he could have got on base. But you got to go with the Sultan of SWAT. I mean, I took the man who had a 342 to 344 batting average, over 2,000 RBIs, Jack, 2,000, 714 home runs. We talk about what a great pitcher he is, what a great power guy he was, and he still has the best home run power average in the history of baseball. I mean, it's unbelievable his slugging percentage. But we don't talk about what a great hitter Babe Ruth was. I mean, we don't talk about the singles. We don't talk about the doubles. I mean, you're talking a career average that 40 more points higher. Pete Rose had 4,600 and something hits, Jack. He only drove in 1,000 RBIs. That means out of all the hits he had, he only drove in 1 RBI for almost every hit he had. Babe Ruth didn't have 4,000 hits, but still drove over 2,000 RBIs. So, I mean, Jack, you know better than this. I mean, I love the try here with Pete Rose. Great hitter. If I had no out, I would pick Pete Rose. But if I have a man on second, I want to drive somebody in. If I want to make it a hit to the outfield in the galley or to the wall or over the fence, I mean, there's a lot more batters that could have done that, Jeff.
Well, yeah, I'll just respond to you quickly. Pete Rose hit 321 in 67 postseason games. And Mac, you always talk about small ball. A great proponent of small ball. that there's no more strategy in baseball. You got to move runners along. Now you're down 1 run, 2 outs in the last inning. You're going for the big swing with Babe Ruth. You're
I'm going
going for the big swing. You're
yeah.
going for all the marbles. I'm the one that's thinking smaller ball. Get the guy in from second base. Tie the game up.
Jack,
Pete Rose is better for getting the guy in from second base than Babe Ruth. If I want to let all my marbles ride on one swing, then it's
Jack, it doesn't show that. It shows that Babe Ruth has almost 1,000 more RBIs and a higher batting average. Now, you know, Pete Rose might get hit, but that might not even drive the run in. It might be first and third next. And all I'm saying, Jack, is when you have in a position to drive in a run, I want somebody like Lou Gehrig. I'll even take Carl Yastrzemski with 1,800 RBIs. I mean, there's so many other batters I would have chose than Pete Rose. No outs, Pete Rose is my man with nobody on. Pete Rose is my guy. Or Ted Williams. Well, I'll take either one.
Well, you want to talk about career. Who's gotten the most hits in Major League history if you want to talk about career? Now, if you want to talk about numbers, it's Pete Rose.
No. I'm talking about numbers, Jack. I'm talking
about
the
most hits in Major League history.
Average, Jack. A higher average, guaranteed to get hit more. And remember, Pete Rose led off. He was your first hitter, so he's going to get more hits anyway. He's going to see the ball a lot more times than somebody maybe batting fourth. So he's got more chances to get more hits. Okay, Joe DiMaggio, Jack. Joe DiMaggio. I mean, you're talking a guy that drove and runs and was a hitter and had a little bit of pop in his bat too.
The answer's not who was a better ball player per se. Okay, the answer's getting in a guy from second base.
Right.
Let's hear Doc's selection.
All right, so I don't think you can argue against either guy. I think in any of these situations when you're talking about Babe Ruth, I mean, I don't know how you argue against Babe Ruth because he's Babe Ruth and he's might be the greatest hitter of all time. If he's not the greatest hitter of all time, then the greatest hitter of all time is probably Ted Williams. And so then it becomes, I don't know how you argue against Ted Williams. Now, people would say that Ted Williams wasn't great in the clutch, but I think he only played in 1 World Series. That was, and I think he was injured or sick right before then. You want to talk about a guy who can get a hit. You know, you talk about Ted Williams. He had a big home run in one of the early All-Star games when it was really taken seriously. There's a famous footage of him circling the bases and clapping his hands. But you want to talk about a guy who's clutch. You think about the last day of the 1941 season, and Ted Williams is hitting 399.5 or 6, and his manager says, why don't we sit you down and you can be a 400 hitter? He goes, I'm not going to back into being 400. And I think he goes 6 for 9 in a doubleheader and ends up hitting 406 for the season. So it's pretty hard to argue against him. My wild choice, though, just for fun, because I knew you guys were going to have fun with this, was Tommy Henrich, who was also known as Old Reliable.
Oh, Reliable, and, well.
Yeah, so he always had a lot of big hits for the Yankees when they were winning all those World Series. But I didn't check the numbers on him. I just thought it'd be fun to throw him out there. But I would pick either Ted Williams or Babe Ruth. I understand what you're saying about Pete Rose. He's a great hitter, and in that 1980 World Series, you know, he showed how clutch he was. You remember that pop-up? And Bob Boone goes over to catch it, and it bounces out of his glove, and Pete Rose was there to catch it. I mean, that's who Pete Rose was. He was in the right spot at the right time, sort of like when we were talking about Jeter before.
There's one name, Doc, there's one name I'm surprised you didn't come up with, okay? But being a Yankee fan, I can understand you having a mental block and not coming up with him. The man with, I think, the most walk-off hits in Major League history. If I'm not mistaken, that stat has to be looked up. I think David Ortiz.
Oh, God, yeah.
David Ortiz, I mean... I was seriously considering David Ortiz for the amount of walk-off hits, how he's haunted the Yankees.
I blocked that out of my memory.
I figured that one. Yeah,
and
you're forgiven for that one.
You guys, seriously, I thought about going with Carl Yastrzemski. There's a guy that's not talked about enough, I don't think. The man I think he won a Triple Crown. Great batting average. Yep. Great batting average, a lot of power, and drove in a lot of runs. And I mean, he helped carry the Boston team in the 70s there into the early 80s. He was a great ball player and also an RBI machine. So I mean, I almost did go with Carl Yastrzemski.
1967. If we were talking about for one given season, who would we want with the bat in his hands? Only for one given season, you can't go wrong with Carl Yastrzemski that year.
And of course, we did leave out Willie Mays, the great New York Giants center fielder, and came back to the Mets.
You know what's forgotten about Carl Yastrzemski? When people think back to that great Yankee Red Sox World Series game where the Yankees won 5-4, and Yaz made the final out. He hit a
I was just going to bring this up.
third base to Greg Nettles. Right. It's forgotten Carl Yastrzemski hit a homer early in the game.
He took
So
Guidry
it's not
deep.
like he exactly didn't come through for the Sox, because he did. I'm not sure whether he got another hit besides that, but he did hit a homer early in that game.
And you talk about – go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think this goes right back to our, again, the talk about Jeter and recency bias and highlight films. So when people today see Carl Yastrzemski coming up in a big spot, it's that one-game playoff against the Yankees, and Gossage throws and he pops out, and Yaz didn't come through. What people don't see is earlier in that game, the Red Sox got off to an early lead because Yaz took Ron Guidry in his 25-3 season over the wall and gave the Red Sox the early lead. I mean, Yaz was as clutch as they come.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about spraying the ball the other way. He had a lot of doubles off that green monster and a lot of home runs in that short porch, got it up in the air over the fence. Yaz was unbelievable, and a fielder off that wall too. I mean, he would cut people going to second base. And being a Yankee fan, I watched, back then, especially late 70s, and those great rivalries between the Red Sox and Yankees, and I have nothing but respect, even being a diehard Yankee fan, nothing but respect for Carl Yastrzemski.
And Yaz was, to me at least, okay, I don't know whether you guys share this opinion, the best defensive left field I ever saw. Best defensively. And ironically, we were talking about the 1967 season opening game. They had a rookie pitcher, Bill Raw, going for them, the Red Sox. They had a no-hitter going, 1 out in the 9th inning, or maybe there were no outs, but Yaz made a phenomenal catch in left field. But then Elston Howard broke up the no-hitter with 2 outs to go in the 9th inning. But the ironic part about it, before the year was over, Elston Howard would get traded to the Red Sox. Right. Very ironic.
Okay, Jack. So the second debate topic we're going to have is a similar thing, but it's in football. So it's 4th and goal on the 1-yard line. It's the Super Bowl. And you've got one running back that you're going to pick to hand the ball off to score that touchdown. And, Jack, there were some great running backs who scored a lot of TDs in the New York, Boston, and Philly history. Thurman Thomas had over 60 rushing touchdowns. Curtis Martin and Emerson Boozer with the Jets had over 50 touchdowns. John Riggins was a heck of a running back for the Jets before he got traded to the Redskins. And the Eagles had Wilbert Montgomery. Deuce Staley had his time. But there's one back that I would send in on 4th and goal, on the 4th and 1 at the goal line in the Super Bowl for the win. And the first running back that comes to mind is Brandon Jacobs, Jack. Super Bowl champion, 6'4", 265 pounds, Jack, bigger than most linebackers in the league, and in most cases faster. He was a highlight every time he touched the football, running over linebackers, running over safeties and cornerbacks. He had over 60 touchdowns in his career. Started as a short yardage specialist when Tiki Barber was a featured running back. In the Green Bay championship game, Jack, the one we won when we beat Brett Favre, on the first play of the game, Jack, he took the ball outside. Could have made a move. It was an icy field. He chose instead to run right over cornerback Woodson, and that set the tone for the game. I mean, there was no more ferocious, more dynamic, had more toughness and speed for his size than Brandon Jacobs. If I was a coach on a professional football team, Jack, and as crazy as it sounds, for that one game in the Super Bowl, and I had to choose by any running back in the history to give the ball to, even Jim Brown, maybe even Earl Campbell, 4th and 1 on that goal line, I'm handing that ball to that big guy, Brandon Jacobs. And just with his attitude alone, he's getting in that end zone.
Well, you make a good argument, so I'm going to keep it short because I got to be honest about it. I mean, Brandon Jacobs seemed to be unstoppable once he had his momentum going because he had such a big body, and him running right into the line of scrimmage, that's all he had to do. Move the line of scrimmage, and you're talking about 1 yard. and 1 yard only, 4th and 1, having to get the touchdown. I mean, he's the closest thing to Marshall Lynch that we have, but never mind Pete Carroll attempted a passing play that was picked off by Malcolm Butler instead of using Marshall Lynch. And I'm not a fan of Marshall Lynch, but that's an issue, a different issue. Buffalo had obviously maybe the 2 greatest backs in local history. You could argue with O.J. Simpson and Thurman Thomas. I mean, you could make that argument. There have been several others. You know, the guy I'm going to pick, and I'm not going to make that big an argument for him because Brandon Marshall was nearly unstoppable with that big body of his. I'm going to say Tiki Barber because for the years 2003 through 2006, that 4-year period, he had the most yards from scrimmage than any running back in the NFL. So I can argue for that 4-year period, he was the best running back in the NFL. And let's face it, Tiki Barber wasn't going to be denied. He wasn't the guy you stopped at the line of scrimmage. One way or the other, he was going to get over the goal line. I mean, Marshall, Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Jacobs.
Brandon Jacobs, I'm thinking the receiver. Now, Brandon Jacobs did things strictly by force. He had no other way of doing it. He's not going to finesse you on a sweep or whatever. Tiki Barber could go in various ways. He could do it by force, maybe a little less, okay, than Brandon Jacobs, but he could do it by force, going straight ahead. He could cut a little to the left or right, go on the outside, just a little more versatile. So Tiki Barber would be my guy that I would trust in that situation. But Mac, no arguments at all. When you see the big body,
And
your
Jack,
guy. I mean, I can't argue.
The great thing about Jacobs is he was a multi-1,000-yard rusher. I mean, people would bunch the middle and he'd break it outside, and you would be surprised how fast this big guy was at 267 pounds.
But keep in mind, you say 4th and 1.
Yes.
You didn't say handoff necessarily. So
Well, yeah, I did. I
bunches the line, and you have to throw a short pass.
No, I said 4th and goal, 1 yard line, Jack, 1 yard line.
What?
I said 4th and goal, 1 yard line. Who do you handing the ball off to? That's what
you said. You said handoff. You said who? Well, I thought you said who you give the ball to, Mac.
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure what you said, to be honest.
I mean,
if it's give the ball to, give could be a pass.
And
the ball obviously
boy,
can't
we're
be
reaching.
passed.
We're reaching.
I got to go back to the tape. I got to study the tape on the show. I'm putting this on I'm throwing out my red flag.
Okay,
it's on the peel. The review booth is Linda's in the review booth. I want to
right. But remember, it's got to be clear. It's got to be a clear violation, Jack, or the place.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, Doc, who do you got?
All right, I think you're both wrong. He's a local guy. He only played 5 seasons. You mentioned him at the beginning, but he actually did this in the biggest spot in the Super Bowl, and he's the type of running back who he carried his team through an entire postseason. And I think in the biggest play, I think it was the 1983 Super Bowl against the Miami Dolphins. It was a 4th down, and they handed the ball to the great John Riggins, who turned that 4th and 1 into the longest run at that time in Super Bowl history. It was a touchdown. The Diesel. There's nobody I'd rather give the ball to in any time than John Riggins. With his head is in the game and he's ready to play like he was that entire postseason after that strike year of 82 and into the 1983 January. He was unstoppable. He carried the Redskins. He was really, that was my absolute, we talk about recency bias. That was my absolute favorite season ever of watching football, and I just couldn't get over how great John Riggins was. And so if I'm going to hand the ball to somebody, it's John Riggins, without a doubt, and he's going to take me all the way to victory.
Let me tell you, I remember that Super Bowl, and I remember being frustrated watching the Miami Dolphin defense. It was either 3rd or 4th down, and it was a half yard to go for Washington, and Miami had to stop them. But I knew when they bunched the line, don't do it, because there was a little time on the clock, even if Washington got the first down when Miami could have gotten the ball back, and it's 17-13, Miami's down. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way they're going to stop Riggins from getting a half yard. They could line up every single player on him, 11 against 1, and he's going to be able to at least get that. So they bunch the line, and Riggins breaks it for a long touchdown. Okay? Yeah. Instead of sometimes just concede. Look, the guy's going to get the first down. It's the yardage is too short, and then a new set of downs. We could then try to keep him in check that way. But, yeah, that was a backbreak. It made it 24-13, and the game was over.
Well, believe it or not, Jack, on a 4th and like a half yard, the safest play, of course, is the quarterback sneak. Anytime you go to hand off that ball.
Not with John Riggins. Riggins, it was a done deal like that.
I mean, I'll tell you,
no one was stopping him.
People don't realize how fast Riggins was. He had like a 4.40. That was a fast guy. He's known for his size, but he was a very fast running back. So I don't know who won that one, but there were some really good answers there. I know who won the first debate, so we'll leave it at that. Again, Doc, we appreciate you coming in. It's always a pleasure having you on and your knowledge. Tell the people before you go a little bit, the people new that joined the show, about that great Yankee blog and that exciting book, Scattering the Ashes.
Real fast, start spreading the news. Great Yankee blog. We have multiple articles up every single day. Start spreading the news.blog. We have a whole host of great writers. We do a lot of unique stuff. We look at things, from historical perspective, but there's a lot of great articles that also come from the heart and our own experiences as fans and players. Not that we ever played professionally, but as players and things like that. And my novel, Scattering the Ashes, again, getting great reviews. It's won a number of awards, including from the New Mexico-Arizona Book Association. It won number 1, the winner in literary fiction for 2020. So great book about a person and his relationship with his father and God and a woman and fulfilling his father's last wishes. I hope everybody takes a look at it. The feedback has just been great, and I appreciate you asking about it each week. And I love being on with you guys. I look forward to next week and a lot of great questions and topics and arguments. It's fun.
Just one more question, a generic question. By this time next week, would something have gone down in the free agent market?
Oh, I hope so. It's so slow. I'm going to say no because it's just so slow, but we have the winter meetings coming up. Right. And maybe, just maybe, something big happens. Baseball needs some good publicity. It needs something to happen. Definitely. Maybe Francisco Lindor getting traded to the Yankees. Let's have some fun.
That would be great. That would be great, Doc. And again, everybody check out Start Spreading the News blog. It's awesome. You can go to our website over there at macandjacksports.com. The link is right there if you can't find it on Twitter or any other place. We have it on our website. And I do own a copy of Scattering the Ashes. I have read the book. It's tremendous. And Doc, thanks again for coming in.
See you next week, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
See you, Doc.
So there you go, Jack. Again, a great visit with Dr. Paul Semendinger, a very knowledgeable, not only Yankee fan, but a Major League Baseball, and showed up a little bit on a football.
And let me tell you, with these debates, the bottom line is, we're naming great names.
Right.
I mean, is anyone going to cry if Ted Williams, Collier, Yastrzemski, Pete Rose, Babe Ruth, any of them has a bat in his hand? We'll all smile. 4th and 1. Even guys, we haven't even mentioned some of the great running backs, 4th and 1, like Matt Snell.
Definitely.
4th and 1. I mean, there's so many to choose from. It's it's fun to pick one.
It sure is.
More than enough qualified great players.
So we're looking for the best, who we think are the best, which makes it interesting when you have the choice, which is very hard, Jack, because like you said, we could take either one of those in any spot like that, and we wouldn't be wrong. We just might not be as right, Jack. That's the truth.
Max, Sandy Koufax is your man, but if I need some, but if I tell you all of a sudden you're going to have Tom Seaver, Roger Clemens pitching, I mean, you wouldn't lose much sleep over it.
Definitely. I mean, I'll take Ron Guidry at his best over almost anybody.
Sabathia, Mike Messina, you'd be
sure.
still. Yeah.
Well, folks, stick around. We'll be right back after our first break I think we're going to go next, Jack, with the best backup in NFL, best backup quarterback in the NFL today, folks. So that's what we'll be at next. Stick around, and we'll be back right after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211-INFO-LINE. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about it. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting the stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle's one of the kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They've never admitted to, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're live 8 to 10 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. Today is our debate show where me and Jack debate the hottest topics, history, and everything in sports that you can think of. Jack, we just had our guest on, of course, Dr. Paul Semendinger. It's a privilege to have him on every week. He's really good at, he knows a lot of information about baseball, Yankees, and specifically runs a great blog over there. I don't know if you visited it yet, Jack, but if you get a chance, go on to Twitter and check out his blog. It starts spreading. Start spreading the news. Yeah, the other one is scattering the ashes, but that's his book. But start spreading the news. Of course, a great Frank Sinatra song, New York, New York. Check that out. And as I said, it's a great blog, and you get a lot of information there. He even has our show on there, believe it or not, Jack, when he comes on. He posts our show on there, great friend of the show. Jack, the next debate we got coming up, and before I get to that, I want to mention our sponsors that we have on the show real quick. Fanatics, we're on our website. Go there to get all your favorite teams, jerseys, gear, anything, hats, all kinds of apparel that they have carried there. They have a special on NBA jerseys right now. They're running, it's like 60% off or something like that. It's new, it's up there. All you got to do is click on the link. And we also got BST sports cards. It's really BST.com, breakers.com. They're a new sponsor, and they have all the different cards and packs, and they also have authenticated jerseys. They're on there too. Their link is also on our first page, so check them out. Jack, so our next debate is the best backup quarterback in the NFL today, and you go first.
Okay, a backup has to be thought of as a specialist, okay? You have to have the mindset to be a really good backup quarterback. It's like the sport of basketball. Some guys start, but they're not as good coming off the bench. Some guys specialize at coming off the bench, and the best backup far and away, he's been a career backup, is Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick's been with 8 teams. Now, he's periodically started for some teams, but the reason he's moved around team to team, because he's been a backup, and when he's come in as a backup, he's been successful really just about everywhere he's gone. Right now, he's with the Miami Dolphins. He might start tomorrow, depending on what Tua's injury status is, but he's the guy you want coming off the bench. He came off the bench in Tampa Bay for Jameis Winston. He'd come off the bench for the Jets, for the Buffalo Bills, for the Houston Texans. And because he's so capable of learning systems very quickly. That's why you can't just get any outstanding quarterback and make him a backup. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he can be traded to any NFL team, and within 2 weeks, he's going to have their system down pat. He's going to be ready to just step in and do the job. And you can't say that for a lot of other quarterbacks. It takes some time to learn the system. And the NFL has only had, when you think of it, a handful of great backup quarterbacks like Earl Morrall with the Colts and the Dolphins, Gary Quazzo, who backed up John Unitas with the Baltimore Colts, Frank Reich, who backed up Jim Kelly with the Buffalo Bills, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, who it seems has backed up just about everybody, one time or another. So he's the guy you want, the perfect backup, because he won't be on the bench campaigning to start. I mean, there's so many starting quarterbacks now, if they go to another team, it's only a stopover. They're getting all edgy to start. It doesn't mean they're not going to perform as a backup, but there's tension because they're not truly accepting their role, or they're just going to be there 1 year because they have to start somewhere else. So Ryan Fitzpatrick is your ultimate team guy, your ultimate backup. He knows the system, and he's the guy you want there as your insurance policy in the event your starting quarterback goes down.
I mean, when you frame it that way, Jack, I mean, you are correct in a lot of ways. Ryan Fitzpatrick can play really great sometimes, and sometimes he's really not that great. I mean, he can lose the ball game too when he starts throwing interceptions. But when you frame it that way, you have a good point. But it's not a fair answer as far as this year goes, Jack, because Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the starting backup quarterback this year. He's a starter. Tua is the backup. Tua was healthy in the beginning of the year, Jack. I mean, they had him sit. Ryan Fitzpatrick went in and played like the starting quarterback. Tua was his backup. When they did put Tua in, they pulled him. So they put the starting quarterback back in the game because Tua had a bad game. And now Tua will probably not play this week because of what they're saying. He has an injured thumb. So my best backup is Andy Dalton. He's definitely the backup quarterback this year. Dak Prescott started, got hurt, and Andy Dalton came in and didn't miss a beat. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are a mess this year, but it's sure not because of Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has done his job and beyond. I mean, you got Lamb dropping passes. You've got Cooper dropping passes. The defense is terrible. The running game, the offensive line is hurt, but still Andy Dalton goes in there and throws a winning touchdown against the Giants, dropping a diamond. A second string offensive lineman, maybe third, Jack. In the last game I saw, as I said, there were drops. It wasn't Andy Dalton's fault. He has kept them close without a running game, and still a very good quarterback that could be a starting quarterback on a different team. I think he could still be a starter. Ryan Fitzpatrick, as good of a backup as he has been, and sometimes not a good backup, and a very bad starter in some games. I think you're confusing Tua and Fitzpatrick this year, because Tua is definitely the backup quarterback right now, Jack.
Tua is not the backup. Tua is injured right now. Brian Flores made it clear Tua is the starter for the Miami Dolphins going forward. In the beginning of the year, we knew it was a matter of time before Tua would be starting. He was drafted highly. So,
Right.
And even Fitzpatrick said it, a backup is a specialty type player. And that's what Fitzpatrick is. He's a specialist as a backup, okay? Anywhere he would go at the end of the season to any other team, he's going there as a backup. Now, sometimes the backup is called upon to start. When there's an injury, that doesn't make him a starter. He's still a backup, but he's filling the position for the time being. Andy Dalton, is he a better quarterback than Fitzpatrick? You can make that argument based on his body of work when he was a starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. But Andy Dalton is new to the backup position, and they've won a grand total of one game with Andy Dalton as the backup. He hasn't shown himself to be a career backup. Fitzpatrick, for the most part, is a career backup who sometimes has been in a position to start for a team.
But this year,
he always finds himself in the same role as a backup.
This year, he was named the starter while Tua was there, Jack. You can't deny it.
Until Tua could take over the driver's seat.
And Tua took over and not hurt because he played poorly, and they put the starter back in, Jack. I mean, I don't know how you can
put the backup back in.
No, Jack, he was named the starter in the beginning of the year. Tua was healthy. Tua was drafted, as you said, to be a future starter. Future is the key word there, Jack. Future starter. Right now, Ryan Fitzpatrick was named the starter this year, and then when Tua came in to supposedly be the starting quarterback going forward, he got pulled.
Who's starting for the Dolphins? When Tua's healthy, either tomorrow or next week, who's going to start for the Dolphins?
It might be the backup. It might be Tua, Jack.
It won't be Fitzpatrick. Brian Flores, he's talking to guys like you, Mac. He says, I don't know how many times I have to say it, Brian Flores says, that Tua's our starter. He's saying, how many times I have to answer the question? Yet you at a press conference would keep asking Brian Flores, who's your starter? No wonder these coaches get fed up with the media. He's answered the question, Mac, but you still keep answering it.
Yeah. Words don't mean nothing, Jack. Actions do. He started Ryan Fitzpatrick with a healthy Tua. Now, you could say that because he took Ryan Fitzpatrick was because of experience. You could say they were worried about his injuries. You could say all that stuff. He still has to learn a system. So he named Ryan Fitzpatrick the starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. When Tua came in, as you said, he did say this, Tua is our starting quarterback going forward. But yet, when he had a bad game and there was no injury, he pulled Tua and put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in. So, I mean, his actions are showing me that Tua right now is the backup, that Tua is not good enough to play the whole game or play the next game if he doesn't make a good showing. That's not a starting quarterback.
Tua had injury concerns at the beginning of the year. They were breaking him in easy. And even Fitzpatrick said it's only a matter of time until Tua's going to be the starter. Right. He knows he was just keeping the seat warm.
I
The
agree,
car
Jack.
belonged to Tua, even
I
though
agree.
Fitzpatrick was allowed to take it out to drive for a while, to go
I agree.
somewhere.
But again, you said the key words in that statement, Jack, was we knew Tua was going to be the starter. So right now, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the reason why I say that's an unfair answer is because right now, in my opinion, and the actions show this, that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the starting quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, and he will be until Tua can play a good game and not get poached.
No, until Tua's hand as well. Nothing to do with Tua's performance.
That's why he got
As soon as
pulled.
Tua's healthy, which might be this weekend, Tua's going to be starting.
But he got pulled when he wasn't injured, Jack. Why? I mean, if that's your starting quarterback.
You call on your backup to give you a spark sometimes.
Why did Earl Morrall become the starting quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, Jack?
Because Johnny Unitas, because Brian Greasy got injured.
About Johnny Unitas did too, right?
Johnny Unitas was injured, so Earl Morrall was starting. You're bringing your backup to start
Right.
when the starter is hurt. That's the purpose of a backup.
Right.
Backup,
Right.
backup doesn't just carry a clipboard. He's there in the event he's needed. But he's still a backup, even though he's starting that game. Your backup starts games when your starter's hurt.
Tua was not hurt in the beginning of the year, and he was not hurt.
Yes, he was. He had injury concerns from the offseason.
He was not injured. They said he was fine, Jack.
No, that was the whole thing with drafting Tua. Teams were concerned with his injury history. He'd been hurt at Alabama. He was hurt in the offseason. He was rehabbing while he was drafted.
Right. And then they named Fitzpatrick the starter. And then Tua went in and they said he was our starter going forward. And then he had a bad performance and they put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in.
Only for that game.
Right. Exactly, Jack. And he didn't hurt.
Fitzpatrick, as soon as the game ended, went back to being the backup.
Yes, he did. Did he? No, he got hurt.
He did.
Oh, he got hurt.
The backup now. If any action Fitzpatrick's going to see, only if Tua's hurt or he's having a really terrible performance. That was the only way he's going to get in.
I agree with that, Jack. And to me, if you have a starting quarterback, whether he's having a bad performance or not, you give him a chance to come back at the end of the game and win the game for you. But I agree with the way you framed it, saying that Fitzpatrick is probably the best backup quarterback in the league right now. I would agree with that. So we're going to go into, Jack, next. We're going to turn our attention to basketball. And we're going to go with the best shooting guard in the local history, meaning New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. So we got a lot of choices to choose from. I'm sorry, we're going to the best cornerback. My bad, Jack. Best cornerback.
Cornerback.
Yeah, we're saying football first. And then we'll move to the guard. We'll go to NBA after football. So we're going to go the best cornerback in local history. And to me, Jack, welcome to Revis Island, right? Super Bowl champion, 7-time Pro Bowler, all-rookie team, all-decade team. Had 497 tackles, 29 interceptions, 140 pass deflections. He was the ESPN College Player of the Year before he came up. The Jets actually traded up to get this man. In 2009, Tim Graham stated Revis has become the NFL's predominant lockdown cornerback, comparing him to Deion Sanders and Rod Woodson. The Jets matched him against Pro Bowlers one-on-one, Andre Johnson, Randy Moss, limiting, I'm having a problem talking right now, Jack, limiting them to under than average numbers. Quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers, Jack, actually stopped throwing to wide receivers he was covering. During 2011 wild card game, Revis held Reggie Wayne to only one reception, Jack, the great Reggie Wayne. He made key interceptions during big games. He signed the biggest contract for a defensive back at 6-year, $96 million. The Jets signed him after that to a 5-year, $70 million contract. $39 million of that was guaranteed. I don't know, Jack. I've watched a lot of cornerbacks in my day, in my years of watching football. And I'll tell you right now, I've never seen a cornerback better than Darrelle Revis. He was always matched up against the great wide receivers, Pro Bowlers, Hall of Famers, and kept them in check. He was one of the first players, Jack, that actually liked going on to, the franchise tag and betting on himself because he knew he was going to get another job as soon as he left his team that he was presently on. I don't know of any cornerback in history that's better than Darrelle Revis, Jack.
Well, Deion Sanders was the best cover man of all time in the NFL. But how do I argue against Darrelle Revis? I mean, I'm not arguing against him with my head. I'm doing it with my heart. Because I know Darrelle Revis could lock down one side of the field. He was phenomenal. If there was any criticism on him late on in his career, he was kind of a weak tackler, especially closing out his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. It was embarrassing, his lack of tackling, in the playoff game that they lost, his last game. Andy Reid picked up Darrelle Revis thinking he'd be the Darrelle Revis of old, but rather he got an old Darrelle Revis. But Darrelle Revis was, speaking, he was the best. But I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to pick another Jet cornerback, Johnny Sample, who really should be in the Hall of Fame, who's largely forgotten. Now, Johnny Sample was arguably the most despised player in football in his day. He went to Maryland State University. Then he came up with the Baltimore Colts in 1958. And he was part of those legendary Baltimore Colt teams that beat the Giants in the championship games, 1958, the greatest title game ever played. And then the Colt team that repeated in 1959, beating the Giants 31-16. In that game, Johnny Sample intercepted the pass and returned it for a touchdown. But Johnny Sample was a trash talker before his time. And he also got involved with social issues, injustices to his fellow black players who he felt were, getting paid less than their white counterparts. And he was actually correct. That was the mentality at the time. And he wrote a book, even Johnny Sample, Confessions of a Dirty Football Player. And Johnny Sample was a dirty football player in the sense, what got him basically blackballed from the NFL was Del Schaffner, the Giants wide receiver, caught a pass, and he was on the ground, and Johnny Sample just could have touched him to end the play, but he came down on him with an elbow. He broke his ribs. It was on the news, and the NFL had it with Johnny Sample. I mean, players hated him like Frank Gifford because he would rough Frank Gifford up and tell him, you're too pretty to play this game. You should be doing a Hollywood movie. But that was Johnny Sample's way of getting inside their head. It wasn't personal to him at all. But players didn't do it in that time. Everyone does it today.
Yeah.
Everyone does it today. You have a whole boatload of Johnny Samples today with trash talking. But then it was considered unsportsmanlike. Johnny Sample kept a book on every receiver. A book on every receiver with categories. And one of the categories was intimidation. He would grade them 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. And that's how he would take his play on the field. And the one receiver he couldn't intimidate, he admitted, was Fred Biletnikoff for the Oakland Raiders. He'd say, you hit him hard. He seemed to laugh at me. I couldn't faze him no matter what I did. But Johnny Sample, after the Colts got rid of him in a contract dispute because he went to Weeb Eubank, the head coach, he said, this is what I'm going to get paid. If you don't pay me, I'm walking out. And Weeb Eubank didn't believe he'd walk out. Johnny Sample walked out. So he was picked up by the Redskins, by the Steelers. Then he got blackballed by the NFL. But lucky for him, there was an AFL. And he hooked on with the New York Jets. And he became their defensive captain. He was a defensive captain. Joe Namath loved him. They went to the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl with Johnny Sample as a defensive captain. He intercepted a pass in Super Bowl III. He raised hell. When Tom Matty broke off a long run, Johnny Sample piled on at the end of the play. Tom Matty was furious. Johnny Sample later intercepts a pass on the goal line, and he stuffs the ball in Willie Richardson's face. Do I condone it? No, it's Bush League. But they let you get away with stuff in sports at that age, like the bad boy Pistons with clothesline guys going to the basket. It intimidated opponents. They shouldn't have been allowed to get away with it, but they were. I'll make this case. They played the same amount of years, Johnny Sample, Darrelle Revis. Darrelle Revis intercepted 29 passes, Johnny Sample 41. Darrelle Revis was a greater lockdown cornerback. Let's be honest about it. No one was the lockdown cornerback of Darrelle Revis, but Darrelle Revis ended his career as a broken down, stumbling player. Not the Darrelle Revis we knew.
Sure.
Players would beat him. He was embarrassingly bad compared to what he was. Johnny Sample's last NFL game, I'm not counting the college all-star game where he raised hell with Otto Graham, who coached him one game in that college all-star game when he was a rookie. That's a story in itself. But his last game was that Super Bowl victory over the Baltimore Colts. Then he had a bad back and had to retire. He was the defensive captain. Joe Namath loved Johnny Sample, actually loved him, and talked about the respect Johnny Sample had with those Jet teams. 3 world championships. Johnny Sample broke in as a rookie, won a world championship. His last year, won a world championship. Should be in the Hall of Fame. And let me add one more thing, Mac. Johnny Sample would talk about his peripheral vision, how important it was. Do you know this guy became a line judge in tennis and judged matches at the U.S. Open and Wimbledon and the French Open? He was a line judge for tennis when he retired.
Wow.
That's how good the vision was and all.
He's
my guy, more with the heart than the head.
Well, listen, Jack. I mean, not just heart there. I mean, that was great information on a guy that we don't talk about. I have heard of Johnny Samples.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, you got some great stats with him, and I agree with you. The man should be in the Hall of Fame. You're talking not only interception-wise and stats-wise and championships-wise, but again, a captain of the Jets defense, which a lot of defensive backs aren't captains of any defense. So, I mean, that was a really great information on that, Jack.
Mac, I won't say all his teammates loved him, even though I said Joe Namath. Artie Donovan, the great tackle of the Baltimore Colts in the old days. I had to contact Artie Donovan because I was helping out with a book on Artie Donovan's dad, Artie Donovan Sr., who was a famous referee who'd refereed the Joe Louis Max Schmeling fights.
Right.
So I finally get Artie Donovan Jr. on the phone, and Artie Donovan Jr. talked kind of in the, I don't want to say funny, like in a Bowery boy type voice, you know.
Right.
That was very appealing and endearing. So for some reason, Artie Donovan switches the topic to football as well. And I asked him about Johnny Sample, and he said, nah, his teammates didn't like him because he was kind of too much of a rebel, this and that.
Sure.
And, different cultures and so on. But later, guys were having in Central Park a reunion, the Baltimore Colts. And Johnny Unitas was there, and they saw Johnny Sample, and he said, come on, you're still part of the team. And that made Johnny Sample feel good.
Yeah. So, I mean, just great information in that debate, Jack.
And listen, Weeb Eubank, who coached him as a rookie for the first 2 championships, was his coach in the Jets.
Yeah.
Later on, fall 3.
Yeah, so that's tremendous, Jack. Great information. We're going to start next topic with the worst season in NFL history, Jack. And we had a few to choose from. I mean, you had the Browns, you had the Lions, you had the Bucks, and you even have a team today. And you go ahead and you go first on this one, Jack.
I mean, they're bad teams. The worst team in NFL history, it doesn't mean they necessarily had to lose every game. It doesn't have to be record. They could have won a couple of games and got blown out in the rest. But I'm going to pick one who lost every game. The 1976 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a 14-game schedule. They were 0-14. I realize that teams may have been 0-16, but that doesn't make them worse.
Sure.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were football's equivalent of the 1962 New York Mets. They were comical. I mean, they were just flat out bad. They were an expansion team. It was their first year. Imagine being a fan. Their first 5 games of the season, they were shut out.
Right.
Imagine that, being shut out their first I mean, not their first 5 games. They were shut out in 5 games during the season. I'm sorry. In 5 of their 14 games, they didn't score a point until their 3rd game of the season, didn't score a touchdown until their 4th game of the season. They lost by more than a touchdown in 11 of the 14 games. That means only 3 games out of the 14 they were even in a position to win. Even bad teams have one player who's very good. Even the
Right.
worst teams, the 62 Mets, or I should say 1963, when they were still terrible, had Ron Hunt, an all-star second baseman. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers' one outstanding player was a rookie that first year, Leroy Selman, who eventually made it to the Hall of Fame. The problem is, Leroy Selman was out for much of the year. He was injured. So even their one shining light, didn't happen. They had their head coach was John McKay from USC.
Right.
Great college coach. He comes to the Buccaneers, a rude awakening. And that set the pattern for future NFL coaches that came from college who really couldn't cut it in the NFL. We forget that. Guys like Nick Saban,
Yeah.
a legendary college coach, arguably the best ever, Nick Saban. You can make that argument if you want. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. But with the Miami Dolphins, he was just no better than average as a coach. And the expansion draft of the NFL, shame on them. In 1976, what they gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a bunch of broken down players, a lot of them hurt. They gave them a pitiful roster, and they played that way. They were last in the league in touchdowns and points scored. And just getting back with the draft, at least the NFL, to their credit, they learned a lesson. Those 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers were so bad. For following expansion drafts, the NFL was sure to get it right.
Yeah.
To at least allow the teams to have some players to make them semi-competitive. But those 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were the worst in history as far as I'm concerned.
Jack, and a valid argument. And the only reason why I didn't pick them was because they were an expansion team and because of the rules that you just mentioned. I was going to bring those up. After Tampa Bay, and I'm trying. Was it Seattle that came in with Tampa Bay, if I remember correctly, Jack? I think it was.
No, I don't think so. No.
I'm almost positive. I might be wrong. I think.
Well,
Tampa, I think Seattle came in with them that year. But they had more success easily than Tampa did. I kind of gave him a pass because a college coach having his first year as a coach, and in having that system that he was under, being an expansion team. I was thinking about going with the Browns. I was thinking about going with the Lions, but I'm going to go right to today, Jack. I'm going to go to the 2020 Jets. I mean, I have never seen in all my years, and I watched Tampa their first year, I have never seen a team handled the way this has been handled, letting some of their best players walk, making the moves they did to get players from other teams that were problems, and then getting rid of them. Their offense has no shot at scoring touchdowns. Their defense doesn't even look like they're playing defense most of the time. They give up the most points in the league. They're beat by the biggest spreads in the league. They can't defend the run or the pass. Their coach is terrible. Their GM, I have no faith in. Their ownership, I have no faith in. They're in New York, Jack. They went to a Super Bowl once. They competed for championships in the 80s. They had good, solid teams. They were in championships with Rex Ryan. I mean, this team has a history. And the way they're run right now over the last 2 years, especially this year, Jack, it makes no sense to me. I don't understand what the hell the Jets are even thinking anymore. You have a quarterback that you traded up to get who had interception problems in college. He came out early. You had a lot more people that you could choose from. You take older running backs, and believe me, I love Frank Gore. He was a tremendous running back and still is good, but that's your feature back now. Your offensive line you piece together from free agency with a a future, maybe good player at left tackle. You let go of your defensive lineman. You let go of your best safety, your best defensive player who actually won a couple of games for you. You didn't try to even enforce his contract. It seems like the Jets give up on everything. And it looks to me that they might even sign Gase again for next year. I mean, what is this organization thinking? And organizations are built from the top down. Tampa Bay, at least you got an excuse for them. First year, college coach. The rules for draft were crazy for expansion teams that year. Getting the players to play that 1 year was ridiculous. The Jets are a historic team, Jack. They're the first team to win a Super Bowl for the AFC. And they put together a stinker like this. Me being a fan of the other New York team, I've seen some bad teams with the Giants, Jack, when Tarkinen was there, when Norm Snead was their quarterback, when Craig Morton was their quarterback. I've seen bad, but never like this, Jack. I have never seen a team that is so hell-bent on being bad in my life and not willing to correct it. So I'm going with the 2020 Jets, Jack.
Darn it, Mac. Even though I have the right answer, you made the better argument than I made. I was kind of impressed, especially you going out on the limb with the Jets who have 5 games left, because the Jets might, you never know, they might make you look bad. If they win a couple of games, you're really going to look bad in this. If they win 1 game, maybe you could still stick with the argument if they're playing lousy. But that's a gutsy pick considering they have 5 games left. And you make a great argument because you mentioned the conditions. It's like a pound-for-pound argument. The Jets are an established franchise. They shouldn't be in this mess. At least the Buccaneers have an excuse.
Right.
You can't blame the Tampa Bay Buccaneer organization. They were just starting out. The NFL dealt them a cruel hand. So with the Jets, you could say to them, well, what's your excuse? The Buccaneers have an excuse.
Right.
So you make a fantastic argument. Kudos to you. But the bottom line is, who is really worse? The Jets are terrible, but not, I don't think, as bad as the Buccaneers. You know, not quite as bad, but listen. Let them, in a way, as a Jet fan, listen, I'm not going to mind if they get the number 1 overall draft choice. I mean, I think Jet fans are hoping for that. And we're supposed to always root for our team.
Sure.
And we're not rooting against our team, but let's be honest about it with the Jet fans. Do you really want to see your team fall out of the number 1 slot, win a couple of games, and lose out, on the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes? 5 games to go. Jets, let's say hypothetically, by some miracle, the Jets win all 5 and end the year 5-11. They're not going to the playoffs. It means nothing. It'll be like them ending last year where they went 6-2, and people got all excited that the Jets are ready to turn the corner. It won't really mean that much outside of just playing for pride and, winning some games. It's good for the moment, and that would be it.
But, Jack, what concerns me is suppose they get Trevor Lawrence. What are they going to do with Trevor Lawrence? Are they going to do the same thing they did with Sam Darnold? I mean, listen.
They'll change the culture, man.
To change the culture, Jack, is going to take an overhaul, and it's more than one player that's going to change the culture. They need some kind of coach or general manager or an owner that gets directly involved and starts changing the culture, because that happens from the top on down, Jack, not by one player, not by a great quarterback.
Matt, can you imagine they do get the number 1 overall pick? They get Trevor Lawrence and they keep Adam Gase.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be the best fit.
Not at all. I mean, you still got a lot of concerns. I don't care if you guys get the best running back and the best quarterback in the college draft. If you don't change what's going on there right now, Jack, there's going to be a few problems. So we're going to take our second break, Jack, of the day. We're going to be back with the best shooting guard. Was Tyson and Jones good or bad for boxing? And we might even get a segment I like to do with you on who's better. We'll match up players and teams and stuff like that. So we'll try to get that to today too, Jack. So right after this break, we'll be getting back to our show, and we'll see how how the rest of the debate goes, Jack. We'll be right back, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health. Keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. Comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. Why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Saturday debate show. I'm Mac, your host, and your co-host, Jack Hirsch. And today, Jack, we debate some of the hottest topics in sports, whether we go back in history or go up to current day stuff, as we just debated the worst season for a franchise in NFL history. Both valid arguments. And we did have on Dr. Paul Semendinger from the Yankees sports blog, Start Spreading the News. Incredible guest. He comes on every Saturday with us. So if you're just joining us, if you want to come back and listen to the doc talk about some of the great things in baseball and Yankees in particular, he's the guy for you. And Jack, right now, believe it or not, I just looked out the window and it's snowing. So we're getting our first snowfall in Connecticut. Yeah, so New York is, I don't know if you guys are getting snow yet or not. It's been raining all night. And
you like that cold weather, Mac? I could just tell. I mean, I'm a warm weather guy. You're a cold weather guy.
Jack, I don't mind either. Any season. I love spring and fall the best. Football or spring with baseball coming in. I do love winter. I do enjoy the cold. And summer I love too because I get to go outside more and play a little. I still play a little touch football here and there, especially when I used to be around, my nephews and stuff, especially when they were younger. The kids were younger. I used to play, and then, as you know, I coached. And it was when we began practicing, and that was my favorite. I love practice coaching more than the game, Jack, because practice is where you got all the stuff together, and you saw that team come into being, and then you have that first game, the excitement goes, and then you're just trying to, put in new plays and trying to feature kids that have special talents, even at that young of age, and you try to get them more touches, and the team grows. It's like a family. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun. So, Jack, as it snows outside, we're going to debate who the best shooting guard in local history was. Again, that's from New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. And, again, a lot of choices if you go through the history of these, some of these great franchises that we had in those areas. And I think I go first here, Jack. And I'm going to pick Allen Iverson of the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, you could consider maybe a combo guard because he did play point a lot, and he did have a lot of assists. But, I mean, you could consider Michael Jordan that too later in his career after he played small forward. So I'm going with Allen Iverson, 11-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star MVP, Rookie of the Year, 4-time scoring champion, over 24,000 points. He broke Wilt Chamberlain's rookie record, with 4 straight games of at least 40 points. He was the MVP of the 2001 season. A little guy, 6 foot, but could shoot from outside and drive to the basket with the best of them. He wasn't just the scorer, Jack. He was the leader of that team. They built a team around him because he was such a high-volume scorer. He was such a hustler. He kind of had an attitude. And, the famous clip of him saying practice, we're talking about practice here, and he went off because people were saying he doesn't practice as hard as they thought he should. Being that size, of course, you get injured, but he played through injury. He played for other teams, but his best years was with Philadelphia. He got Philadelphia back to being competitive and competing championships from long ago when Dr. J and Moses Malone was there. Very exciting player. I think you'd agree with that. And from college all the way into the pros, he was really a find, one of the best players you could argue in Philadelphia history anyway. So I'm going with Allen Iverson, Jack.
Mac, did you read the question, Mac?
Yes, I knew you were going to say.
No, you did not read it carefully. I mean, you're disqualified. It's not who was the best player. I couldn't care less about his defense and his this and his that.
Scoring champion.
Who is the best shooter?
Scoring champion, Jack.
Who is the best shooter?
Oh,
okay? We're talking about a knockdown shooter. We're talking about Reggie Miller's not better than Michael Jordan, is he? No way. He's a better shooter than Michael Jordan.
I would debate that.
Steph Curry.
Yes.
Great shooter.
Yes.
Okay, I could understand had you picked Larry Bird.
Right.
As a shooter.
Right.
Larry Bird. Okay, listen. Larry Bird,
guard,
Magic Johnson.
Shooting guard.
We don't know who is better. Guard. Shooting guard. Okay. Yeah. The best shooting guard, I mean, the best when you say shooting guard, a guard is a guard.
Right.
I don't want to hear some guys are not shooting guards, so they're disqualified. Okay.
Well, that's why Allen Iverson is in the discussion.
Allen Iverson was a great player. Okay, his crossover dribble was phenomenal, but the best shooter, far and away, much better than Iverson, was Ray Allen. He was a true knockdown shooter. We're talking about pure shooting. Allen Iverson was a better player than Ray Allen. But Ray Allen was a better knockdown shooter than Allen Iverson. It wasn't even that close. I mean, percentage-wise, Allen Iverson shot 42.5% from the field. Ray Allen, 45.2%. Okay? From the foul line, Ray Allen shot 89.4%. Allen Iverson shot 78%. Those are just a couple of numbers. If you want to know what a great shooter Ray Allen was, just go back to LeBron James' first of two championships at the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat were cooked in Game 6 against San Antonio. By some miracle, they cut it down to 3 points late in the game, got the ball to Ray Allen in the corner. It was a big frenzy going on. Ray Allen calmly hits the three-pointer. Okay, Ray Allen was a phenomenal knockdown shooter. He was a heck of a good player beside that.
Sure.
But the rest of the stuff isn't as important. And he did have a longer career than Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson appeared in 914 games. Ray Allen in 1,300 games over his career. Yes, Allen Iverson was a better player than Ray Allen. What Allen Iverson did leading the 76ers to a Game 1 finals win over the Lakers was phenomenal, considering that the Lakers were miles better than them, which they proved in the next 4. But Allen Iverson single-handedly carried the team on his back. But for strict knockdown shooting, there's, you get a handful of marksmen in the NBA. That's their specialty. Case in point, Scottie Pippen's a better player than Tony Kukoc, right? Without question. But when Phil Jackson in Game 3 against the New York Knicks, when they were playing the finals the year after Jordan left, needed a basket scored on a throw-in pass, he bypassed his best player, Scottie Pippen, and Pippen wouldn't go back in the game when they had that big controversy because he knew Tony Kukoc was a better, pure, knockdown shooter. And the shot was made. Listen, even the great Michael Jordan,
listen,
he was
Jack,
told to defer to John Paxton.
they
who
were
was a little better of a knockdown
you use
shooter.
that as an example, but that's because they were guarding Pippen more than they were guarding Kukoc too, and they were guarding Jordan more than they were guarding Paxton too. I mean,
Kukoc won a number of games that
are you
year
going
with
to
last
say that
second
Paxton
shot.
was? Are you going to say Paxton was a better shooter than Jordan? Are you going to say that?
If we're talking about a strict knockdown shooter,
You're going to pick
strict
Paxton over
knockdown
Jordan?
shooter, yes, if they slid
Oh,
there and took a
that's
shot.
great.
Jordan was a far greater player. No comparison as a
From the
player.
outside,
Jordan, no, what I'm saying,
Oh.
Jordan will fake you out. He'll put on a move, an explosive move, and then hit the shot.
Right.
But to just hit a guy quickly in the corner who's wide open to shoot.
That's wide
ball,
open.
yes.
Right. There's a reason why he. There's a reason why he was wide open, Jack, because they all thought Jordan was going to shoot the ball.
Correct.
Of course you throw the Paxton the open guy. That's basic basketball. What I'm saying about Iverson, oh my goodness, Iverson is that man could hit the outside shot. I mean, you can't deny that.
He could, but he wasn't great the way Ray Allen was in that regard.
I agree. Ray Allen was a hell of a shooter. I agree with that. But I'm telling you right now that if I had one shot to make, you might be right.
Ray Allen, listen, Ray Allen played for various teams.
Yes, he did.
But he's
yes,
eligible because he did play 5 years with the Boston Celtics.
Boston. Yes.
6 years, actually, 2007 through the 2012 season. And he was, on that 2008 Boston Celtic championship team, a major contributor.
Yes, he was. And it is a good pick, Jack, but don't take anything away from my boy, that 6 foot.
I didn't take anything away. Allen Iverson was great. I'm talking about pure knockdown.
You're disrespecting Allen Iverson right now, and I don't believe it, Jack. But anyway, let's get to our last topic here, Jack. I'll give that one to you. Was Tyson versus Jones good or bad for boxing, Jack? You go first on this one.
See, unlike you, Mac, I'm flexible. I could change my mind. When they first made the fight, I thought, this is bad for boxing. This is a circus. This is a carnival. I come around. You want to know why I come around?
Go ahead.
That exhibition, call it a fight, call it an exhibition, 1.2 million people purchased it. Do you know more people purchased Tyson Roy Jones than they did Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder? And let me tell you, no one got hurt with the Tyson Jones exhibition. They were holding back. and everyone was happy. Everyone was entertained, and they want to see more of Mike Tyson. They want to see more of Vander Holyfield is challenging him now. You put Tyson against Holyfield, you could label it an exhibition if you want. People are going to 1.2 million is going to be 3 million. That's going to be more people are going to view that than are going to view Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua for the undisputed world heavyweight championship.
So that's good for
No
boxing.
other fight. Let me tell you, you could put Floyd Mayweather in against whoever, or what, but Tyson Holyfield, you let them fight now, and let's talk about it. It's going to go off the charts. People are going to wonder what's going to happen. I'm even going to get it. I'm even sucked into the whole thing now. I mean, I'm jumping on the bandwagon. People did not feel ripped off. And they had a lot of people who normally wouldn't watch boxing tune in to see Tyson and Roy Jones, and more are going to be watching it. You might even have a few people who are going to get the pay-per-view tonight of Errol Spence and Danny Garcia, their show. I mean, and they're not going to do nearly as well as Tyson and Jones, and that's a great fight.
Jack,
I think it was really good for boxing.
I am so disappointed in you, Jack. I really am. A person of your stature in the boxing industry saying that was good for boxing. You said it right. It was a show, Jack. It was entertainment. I bet you like The Masked Singer, Jack. I really think you probably sit down and watch The Masked. And you know what? The saddest part of something like this is, it's sad for boxing that this is higher rated than an actual heavyweight championship fight. I think it's terrible for boxing, Jack. It makes boxing less by people watching a show where there's not even real judges. I mean, I think they got judges from I Bet You Can Dance show on this to judge this show, because even if it was exhibition, Tyson clearly beat him, and they said it was a draw because, you know, it's a show. It's not a boxing match. When you have an older Tyson, a great name, and you have an Earl Jones Jr.,
Roy Jones
Jr., who at the end of their career were getting knocked out. They were no longer relevant really in boxing. They were just they were a shell of themselves. And right now they're even less in their prime than they were back then. And if that's the biggest thing that boxing can do, I'm ashamed to be a boxing fan. I really am. I'm disappointed in you, very much disappointed in you and Jack, and disappointed in the American public who would tune in and pay to watch two old guys hit each other. I don't care what their names are, what kind of condition they are for 50 years old or 60 years old or whatever they are. You know, pretty soon it's going to be you against, Keith Angle in the ring, and we'll try and sell that. Maybe we can even sanction that, Jack. And we'll have, the Patriots versus the Jets fan fight. And maybe we'll get 1 million viewers. You don't know. I mean, if this is what boxing has come to, Jack, I'm ashamed to be a real boxing fan.
Now, you mentioned football. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady squared off in golf against one another, and it got high ratings.
Yeah, but we're talking about golf, Jack.
People want to see these icons.
Right. I understand they want to see icons, Jack. But this is not, we're talking about, is it good for boxing? I don't know in any way where this is good for boxing. It's great for entertainment. It's great for old boxing fans to relive the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. Glory days and not pay attention to what happened to them at the end of their career. Both great champions, Jack. I take nothing away from them. But this had nothing to do with boxing and everything to do with entertainment. Next, I think they might be on Survivor. They'll be on an island together and trying to survive, and they'll probably get 1 million viewers for that too, Jack. So, Jack, we're going to move on. I know, I'm very disappointed. That's all I can say, Jack. I'm very disappointed.
Well, listen, I mean, Mac, what you left out, I heard a rumor that you're one of them who bought the pay-per-view for Tyson and Jones. Is that true?
Well, I do like the ring girls that walk around between the rounds. It's one of my favorite things about boxing. So, Jack, who's better, Jack? So we got enough time to get this segment in, and this is where I get your opinion on who's better at what they do or what they did. We're going to lead it off right away with a big one, Jack. The Pittsburgh Steelers head coach or the Kansas City's head coach? Which coach is better, Jack?
Mike Tomlin of the Steelers. In all due respect to Andy Reid, it took him ages to win a Super Bowl. He was a very good coach with the Eagles. He took them to one Super Bowl there that they lost. And Mike Tomlin is one of the great coaches in NFL history. If it wasn't for Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin would be the best, would be rated as the best coach in the game today. He also won the Super Bowl, Mike Tomlin.
Right.
And consistently, he has the Steelers up there. I mean, he's outstanding, Mike Tomlin. Andy Reid's very good himself. Don't get me wrong.
I would agree with that, Jack. Not taking anything away from Andy Reid. Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, Jack?
Oh, Aaron Rodgers, clearly.
Thank
I
you.
mean, again, nothing against Russell Wilson. Is excellent. He's had a heck of a career. But when you talk about Aaron Rodgers, you can make a case he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time. If I said Aaron Rodgers was the greatest quarterback ever, people would disagree, but no one would do a double take and say that's, ridiculous.
They wouldn't
But
think
if I said it about Russell Wilson, people would be in contempt. Russell Wilson, terrific quarterback, consistent over his career, future Hall of Famer. But Rodgers, without a question, is better.
The 1978 Pittsburgh Steelers or the 1985 Chicago Bears, Jack?
Those Steeler teams are underrated. 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. And if I start breaking down the personnel, the players on both teams, I can make a good argument for the Steelers. For one given season, the 85 Bears, I'll take them over the 78 Steelers, who I believe beat the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl there, while the Bears crushed the Patriots. What bothers me about the Bears, though, they only won 1 Super Bowl.
Right.
As dominant and as great as they were that year, why only 1? That kind of disturbs me a lot. While the Steelers won 4 of them in 6 years.
Yeah.
So, but I'll go with the Bears for that one given year.
And I think the Super Bowl, I think Dallas team was a lot better than that 85.
Yeah.
Patriots.
Oh, no comparison. Yeah, they beat the Steelers, beat a great team in the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I would, if you ever revisited that question with me, I would analyze it a little more. But I've always said the 85 Bears were the best I've seen. Yeah.
Ray Nitschke or Dick Butkus, Jack?
Dick Butkus.
Okay.
Ray Nitschke was great. He was an impact play on those great Green Bay Packer teams under Vince Lombardi. Dick Butkus wasn't on those bad teams that had the same level of success as the Packers, not nearly close. But Dick Butkus was a wrecking crew.
Yeah.
He was a wrecking crew when he'd get in there. He was the closest linebacker to LT that you could find. Like, LT was all over the field. Dick Butkus was all over the field, but LT would take different angles. He would be great sideline to sideline. Butkus was a freight train moving forward on blitzes after the cornerback, hitting the running back. He was nearly unstoppable on defense.
2 different positions, too. Butkus played middle linebacker, LT, and outside linebacker.
Right. But the same principle applied, getting after the quarterback to running backs.
Chuck Noll or Don Shula, Jack?
Don Shula, even though Don Shula's career wasn't as great. It was consistent. Chuck Noll had that great run, 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Phenomenal. You can't take that away from him. So he was a great coach, but he didn't get along with his quarterback, Terry Bradshaw. Don Shula was coached with the Baltimore Colts, I believe 9 seasons, if I'm not mistaken, or 7 seasons, one of the 2. But the year after Don Shula left to become coach of the Miami Dolphins, the Colts won the Super Bowl. Should tell you something. And they lost the Super Bowl 2 years before when they were upset by Joe Namath and the Jets. And he did a great job in the beginning with the Dolphins. Don Shula never won a Super Bowl with Dan Marino as his quarterback. Keep that in mind. But Don Shula always had his team in the playoffs every single year. The most consistently good coach you could talk in NFL history, or one of them. Consistently good year after year. So I'll give the nod to Shula.
Trout or Mantle?
Let me tell you, I'll need a little more time to talk about this. This kills me to say this, because Mickey Mantle was my idol, but Mike Trout. I only saw Mantle have one good season when I was a kid at the end of his career. Then I saw him broken down. Mike Trout was injury free. Mike Trout is Mickey Mantle without the injuries, okay?
Okay.
Let's say they're even. Let's give Mantle the tiniest edge when healthy. But the
Okay.
bottom line is Mantle was injured a lot. Trout hasn't been. So Mike
Okay.
Trout's the guy, as much as I hate to say.
Really quick chat because we got like less than a minute
Make
left.
it quick.
Let's go with Eric Dickerson or Marcus Allen, Jack.
Eric Dickerson. I know Marcus Allen would have the most explosive runs. It would seem to me that way. I don't know what the stats would say. Eric Dickerson was a better grinder when he had to be, to just grind out yardage. Marcus Allen was the more showy type of player, more explosive. Eric Dickerson went second in the draft behind John Elway, that year. Could you imagine the Colts just said the heck with drafting Elway when they had a problem and just took Eric Dickerson? They would have had one of the great backs of all time. Who knows how that would have turned out?
Yeah, I think he broke OJ's record for 2,000 yards. The first one, unbelievable running back. But Jack, we've got to get out of here. So,
have fun,
hey, folks. Thanks for coming and joining us. Tomorrow we got our football show on with guest Anthony Servino, our fantasy football expert, and Robert Butler from Scorescope. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow, folks, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Have a great day.